Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Kristie Pretti-Frontczak, and one of the questions I get all the time is how do you do a breakout room in a collaborative space well? So let's say you're in something like Zoom and you want to put all these amazing humans into a breakout room. Well, how do you do that? And what are some of my best tips for doing it well? So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to give you a little bit of the backstory and then I'll give you my top tips. So here we go. So this comes from a series that my friend Julie Costin and I do on how to do virtual PD fabulously. And so we're going to talk a little bit about thinking about your what and even your why before your how. So always be clear about why you want to put folks into breakout rooms before trying to figure out, should they be random? Should they be by choice? Should they be pre-populated? Also want you to think about, do you need a co-facilitator, both to execute the zooming of folks out to breakout rooms, but also while folks are in breakout rooms. So you really want to give some thought to your why and what kind of support will you need. You might even want to think about what roles do folks take once they get to the breakout room. Not necessarily the content or the activity yet, but the roles that they're going to play to make sure that that small group activity, or rather large group activity, because you can do large group breakout rooms, goes off well. So oftentimes Julie and I will use the roles from a TV show, like something like The Love Boat. Who's going to be the captain? Who's going to be Doc? Who's going to be Julie McCoy? Who's going to be the bartender? You can also think of job roles in terms of who's going to take notes, who's going to track down materials, who's going to report back out to the larger group. So really think through it from start to finish. You might even need to do a practice run before the event so that anyone who hasn't been in a small group with you before knows what to expect and can kind of be thinking about the roles they may take on. You also want to provide really clear directions. Now, remember, if you provide in the main room the directions and then folks are zoomed off into a breakout room, they no longer have those directions. So you might want to make some sort of screen that folks can take a screenshot using their phone. If they're on their phone, you might want something in a collaborative space like a Padlet or a Google Drive document that outlines the directions. Because lots of times the directions come fast and furious and people are like, oh, we're going to get in a breakout room. What's my role? What are we going to do? And they may not capture all of the tasks. Then they get to the breakout and they're like, what are we doing? So you want to make sure that those directions are something they can revisit or they can look at ahead of time, look at during the small group, and or even revisit later to think about what occurred and what was transpired that they really learned from. So make sure that they're clear about what the roles are, what they're going to do when they get in the breakout room, and how long they have. You can always send out broadcasts to the breakout room, giving them little reminders, pep talks, and sort of a 2-minute warning. Then you want to make sure that it's clear what they're supposed to accomplish. So is this a free for all? Do whatever you need. Or is there an expectation that something will be brought back and shared with the group? So you want to make sure that folks have a lot of choice, but if there is an expectation that something is completed, make sure they know that ahead of time. If they can have a break during the small group, invite them to move around, to step away from their screen, make that clear as well. So when you think about doing your breakout rooms, depends on when you listen to the recording. They could be random, they could be pre-populated, or they could be based on choice. All of these come with different pros and cons. I really like choice, so I'm going to unpack choice. Now, even though folks can choose their own breakout room, I like to do it in a way that sort of gets behind the scenes and allows for a little bit more success. So oftentimes when you're in a really big group and you're going to have folks choose, it can be very time consuming. There are some kind of bugs still in the system, at least in Zoom. And so I like to use different Zoom accounts, and this can all be hidden. So you can have this graphic. It can be on a Padlet. It can be on a Google Drive document. It could even be in an email. And what you do is you hyperlink each of the images with the Zoom account to where folks are going to go. They don't need to even know that they're being zoomed to another place, though it might be helpful to clarify that so they understand they have to come back to the main room. And so the choices are, would you like to stay in the main room? And maybe the facilitators, in this case, Julie and me, we can answer your questions, we can reteach, we can review. Would you rather go into a place where you're going to turn on your camera, you're going to open your mic up, and you're going to talk to other folks? Would you rather go into a place where you can still be camera off, still be muted, and you want to type or share things through the chat, images, graphics, typing? Or do you want to be on your own? Do you want to just step aside and do your own reflection, your own inquiry, and your own work? And so I really love the option to let folks choose. And I like to set it up ahead of time so that I'm using different Zoom accounts and I'm able to allow folks to go into other places. That way we can record those. I can have facilitators ready to be in those breakout rooms. I can have directions ready to go. And I don't have to worry about in real time sorting hundreds of people into the room that they want to go. So hopefully those tips help you have the most successful Zoom breakout room that you can when you're next time you're Zooming.